Welcome back to Amplified. During the height of the pandemic, the census got underway. In the spring of 2020, you received the customary census form in the mail that comes around every 10 years. And you likely also saw or heard from enumerators in your neighborhood who are charged with collecting your responses to the survey, which was a bit of a challenge in the wake of COVID. New reporting suggests that the Trump administration stuck its grubby little hands in the census, trying to manipulate the federal population count. According to the New York Times, Trump engaged in, quote, unprecedented meddling in the census process. It got so bad, Census Bureau officials wrote a recently disclosed memo outlining their issues with the interference. Trump apparently wanted the Bureau to stop the count before they were finished, so that the population estimates would be skewed in Republicans' favor. The memo points toward a high degree of engagement, which is unprecedented relative to previous censuses, and that there was a concern by the level of direct engagement with the methodology. That's government speak for the Trump administration was sticking its nose where it didn't belong. Joining me now to talk about what was going on is Kelly Percival, census expert and counsel for Brennan Center's Democracy Program. Kelly, welcome to Amplified. Let's talk about methodologies for a minute. Why are they so important to the process? And why are they so crucial to getting accurate census results?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. So census counting methodology is absolutely crucial to the fairness and accuracy of the decennial census. And there's two parts to that. First is the counting methodology, actually how the Census Bureau is figuring out how many people live in the households across the country. So first, that's, they send the mailer out to you. Hopefully people responded over the internet or mailed in their forms. But for a lot of households that aren't comfortable mailing in those forms, the Census Bureau then actually follows up and sends an enumerator to their doors multiple times in an effort to really get an accurate count of the household. What happened under the Trump administration is that Trump tried to cut that entire counting operation short. It's called the non-response follow-up period, when they send out the enumerators. And it's actually really crucial because that specific operation, when they go door to door, has been implemented in order to count populations. The Census Bureau has traditionally found it hard to count, and that includes communities of color are right up there. So Trump's attempts to cut all of that short was going to mean that hundreds of thousands of people were going to go uncounted.
So, hundreds of thousands of people potentially were going to go uncounted intentionally. It seemed like the Trump administration was trying to do a little something here. So, tell us, how could the Trump administration actually benefit if the census count had ended early, like you described? And then also tell us, how was reapportionment actually impacted by the approach that Trump's people pressured the Bureau to take?
Sure. So Trump was trying to implement a memo that he had issued about undocumented populations, and he was actually trying to take account of undocumented populations in each state and remove them from the population of each state in order to produce apportionment numbers that did not include numbers on the undocumented populations. I would note that would have been the very first time that would have happened. It would have been completely illegal and unconstitutional. Always counted the undocumented in our censuses. So that is how it would have benefited him. And it's widely known that probably would have helped white populations as well as Republicans. So that's how it would have helped him. Sorry, I forgot the second part of your question.
Well, no, I mean, I think that you just really made it plain for everybody that what this administration was trying to do is weed out undocumented, immigrants. And let's all not forget that this is an administration who has been really hostile to immigrants of all stripes. That's just been the tone and tenor of that administration. And so to meddle in the count for their own personal gain, which is political, is really the piece that's illegal. And I want you to say a little bit more about that. I don't think that we teed it up just to remind people about why the census is important. We count the people who are in this country because resources are allocated from the federal government based on populations of communities, and so are votes, if you will. So when we talk about gerrymandering and redistricting, all of that is based on the number of people that live in particular communities and districts. The lines theoretically should be drawn in a way that is fair so that those people have adequate representation. What happens when you undercount them? Nefariously, clearly. Talk to us about the legalities there, though, because I know you're an attorney, and I'm curious, you know, what could have gone awry and what the prosecution, you know, would have done if this would have gone even further.
Sure, there certainly would have been lawsuits. His plan to exclude the undocumented populations actually was challenged in court. That one went all the way to the Supreme Court, but the court didn't actually rule on that issue. It punted the issue and said, well, let's kind of just see what happens. So they didn't make a ruling on that. But the Constitution is clear that we count the whole number of persons living in the United States. There's no ambiguities to that because just like you said, the census is used for so many things, particularly allocating federal funding. And so we need to count everyone who lives here if we need to know, what size hospital to build in a neighborhood or what the school district's needs are going to be. We need to know everyone living and not just American citizens.
And is there a lawsuit currently pending on all of this right now, and what might be happening with that?
No. So luckily, that plan did not succeed. The undocumented numbers were still included in the final count. That was partially the result of a lawsuit the Brennan Center filed to prevent that timeline rush in the end of the census. Luckily, none of that came to fruition. And yeah, we're living in a much better scenario than we could have been. And I'll also say that the documents that we uncovered also show the career Census Bureau officials really pushing back at attempts at political interference. So it could have been much worse without those heroes really within the Bureau.
Speaking of those career officials, this census happens every 10 years and the administrations change, right? Biden is not going to be in office in 10 years when the next census rolls around. So I'm curious, is there anything that this administration can do or put in place through executive action or otherwise to make sure that the undercounting attempts can't happen again?
Absolutely. The Biden administration just last week issued a directive to federal agencies to strengthen their policies against political interference, interfering with science, the science that goes behind agency decision making. So that's a great first step. But actually, at the end of the day, it's Congress's responsibility to oversee the census. The Constitution vests that power with Congress. So I think that there are a number of reforms that Congress could consider leading up to the 2030 census so that we don't see these same problems again.
We're talking about getting Congress to evaluate anything and do anything. It doesn't seem like they're doing a whole lot right now, but hopefully the census piece will lift up to the top. I'm going to give you the last word on this. What is Brennan Center inviting the rest of us to do and to engage our leaders around in order to make sure that people don't forget about the need for action here?
Absolutely. I would say, first and foremost, fill out your census form and any other form you might get from the Census Bureau. It's not actually just the decennial survey. They do this thing called the American Community Survey, which is an annual survey that updates the numbers every year. And so it's really important to fill that out if you receive it in the mail. And it's really important to tell your congresspeople that they need to fund those surveys and they need to adequately fund the Census Bureau so it can do its job right.
All right, Kelly Percival, census expert and counsel for Brennan Center's Democracy Program. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on Amplified.